Oh. Good morning, world. Those wonderful folks at Atheist Community of Austin are proud to bring you the anti-Springer of talk shows, The Atheist Experience, with today's guest, the editor of that exciting newsletter, the Texas Atheist. Then we have back to our full crew here. We have Martin Wagner as our guest host. And then Jeff D. is back after his week off. Glad to have you back, Jeff.
Thanks.
And take it away, Jeff.
Yeah, Martin would be our co-host, Ray. Hi, folks. Welcome to the Atheist Experience. This show is brought to you by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. And I didn't bring in the rest of my standard announcements, so remind me again.
Okay.
What am I supposed to say? I'm supposed to remind you that we're on the...
We are live.
We're
April
live.
2nd, 2000.
April 2nd, right?
Yeah, that's right.
April Fool's Day was yesterday, so let's not have any jokes about that.
Yeah.
And we're on the internet, www.spring.net. Tell your friends that live far away they can watch our show on the web by going to that URL. Our group, the Atheist Community of Austin, meets every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. 10:30 at Fur's Cafeteria at the Hot Jumbo Bagel Shop near the corner of 5th and Lavaca. But on the first Sunday of every month, like this one, instead we have our lecture series at 11 a.m. at North Cross Mall, where Howard will be the speaker. How's that? Is that pretty good?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Let's see.
That's at the Fur's Cafeteria at North Cross Mall.
Yeah.
Did I not say Fur's Cafeteria?
No, you didn't.
Fur's Cafeteria at North Cross Mall.
What's the name of the room?
I don't know. It's in the back.
The room in the back.
Yes. Let's
follow the signs, and all the Christians looking at the signs with their trays going.
Yeah. Let's go to news.
Yes, we have news this morning, and quite a lot of news. It was a busy week.
We do. This is a live call-in show, so if you want to talk to us, the phone number is on the screen there. For those of you watching on the internet who can't quite make out a pixelated version of that number, it's area code 512-472-2255. And now go to news.
Yeah, now it is time for the news this morning. And good morning, everybody. Here's the news. The big news, of course, is the school prayer.
Yeah.
Here, the issue that is being heard by the Supreme Court. And I did not, before I get into this, I was unable to make the rally on the Capitol steps Wednesdays. And I understand both of you guys were there.
Yes.
So tell us all something about it.
Well, let's go to Howard for that, since he was involved in organizing that, weren't you?
Yes. The rally on the Capitol steps Wednesday was to coincide with the Supreme Court hearing oral arguments on the Santa Fe ISD versus Doe's case. That's the football prayer case that you've heard about. It was organized as a Respect Our Constitution rally, meaning that we're the people who respect the Constitution. We understand it's a godless Constitution. We understand religion's only mentioned 3 times in the Constitution, all 3 times in terms of prohibitions of what government cannot do about religion. We understand the Constitution gives government no authority to do anything religious. So obviously, to anybody who thinks about it, there should be nothing that government does religious, such as pray at football games or sponsor prayers at football games, or have the sham argument that they are defending student free speech when the school district sets the policy, has the football game, makes the kids come to the football game in terms of football players and cheerleaders and band members. So anyway, our little rally, we had about 24 people there. We had a number of speakers. We got some coverage in the news. There was an article in the Daily Texan. And we basically just wanted to let people in Texas know that there are people who do support the Constitution, unlike those religious people who want to attack and destroy the Constitution, and that there's a growing movement out there of people who think that government should not mix in with religion, and religion should not mix in with government either way.
Right, and I would say that most mainstream Christians are highly supportive of the separation of church and state.
I agree, yes.
It's just this vocal little group. It's Pat Robertson and his wacky fundy cronies who are, well, it's looking okay. Well, it's too early to tell, I think, but it's looking good so far from what I've been reading in the news. But here's a main article from the Atheists.org flashline. The U.S. Supreme Court heard arguments this morning. This would have been posted on March 29th in a crucial case which could determine whether, quote, student-led prayer or other religious invocations have a place in the nation's public schools. Groups on both sides of the issue consider Santa Fe Independent School District versus Doe to be one of the most crucial state-church separation cases which have reached the court, since a series of rulings in the early 1960s that ended coercive prayer and Bible verse recitation in schools. From today's oral arguments, it became clear that justices were already divided on the merits of majoritarian prayer. Quote, "Where do we draw the line?" asked Justice Stephen Breyer. He noted that the court must rule on whether the student-led invocations at school events represent the exercise of free speech or might, quote, "fall on the permissive side of the line and violate the constitutional separation of government and religion." The most skeptical of the 9 justices was David H. Souter. He observed that the policy of allowing students to use a public address system, quote, "requires all these students to sit there while a prayer is going on." Justices Anthony M. Kennedy and Sandra Day O'Connor also appeared cautious in accepting the claim that the, quote, student-led prayer minimized the entanglement of government in promoting a religious exercise. Kennedy worried that a policy of having elections to select a student who would give a message or invocation might result in, quote, schools becoming a forum for religious debates. Attorney Jay Sekulow of the American Center for Law and Justice, a conservative religious group which is representing the Santa Fe, Texas Independent School District, emphasized that the current policy leaves the content of any message up to the speaker. Justice O'Connor interrupted and raised concerns that school officials had to be involved to, quote, bring about the selection of the student by majority votes. Sekulow then emphasized what he described as, quote, the crucial difference between the state as a speaker and the student as a speaker. He labeled the policy of having students rather than teachers and administrators select or lead a prayer a circuit breaker. Texas Attorney General John Cornyn defended the policy and warned the court about, quote, viewpoint discrimination in the case of students who had been selected, but chose not to include prayer as a part of their message. Judge Souter challenged the claim, however, noting that under the Santa Fe policy, all students at a game were a captive audience, and that it was unlikely that a student who wanted to deliver a message that, quote, all religion is bunk, would be able to do so. Well, darhay. Justice Antonin Scalia appeared most sympathetic to the Texas policy. He said that a student could choose to give a, quote, message or invocation, adding, quote, you can't say in every case it's going to produce a prayer. Come on, how naive can we be? While it's difficult to, quote, read how justices may vote on a particular case, court watchers already suggest that the final rendering in the Texas prayer case could be a close one. An Associated Press report of this morning's hearing notes, quote, if the court's decision, expected by late June, were to follow its ideological fault line, Justice Clarence Thomas would join Rehnquist and Scalia. Justices John Paul Stevens and Breyer would side with Souter and Ginsburg. This leaves O'Connor as a possible swing vote. And then it just goes on a bit with the history of how this all kind of came to be, but will be very interesting to keep a very close eye on.
Yeah. You sure can be certain that every prayer is going, or every, what do they call it, every student message is going to be a prayer if you've got a school that is dominated by Christian students who are all het up over the idea of using this as an opportunity to broadcast prayers to Jesus.
Yeah.
Actually, of course that will happen every single time.
Well, actually, it already has happened in Santa Fe.
Right. And so, I mean, certainly if you have a school full of atheist kids, then what you would expect every time is atheist messages, which would also be against the Constitution. It doesn't matter that whether it's religion that's being broadcast or anti-religion that's being broadcast, it doesn't matter. The government can't get involved in that.
All right.
But it would turn the whole thing into each individual school would have whatever the majority religious view was in that school. That is exactly what you would get in all those announcements.
And it's so transparently hypocritical the way they try to sell this as simply a free speech issue. Yeah. Because, you know, as it's pointed out, and of course as all of us, you know, have been saying 100,000 times, if anyone were to get up there and deliver any sort of message that was not a Christian prayer, and suddenly, you know, it's like, free speech? What free speech?
We had that guy 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
that
he's
drove me completely nuts.
Yeah, it's like, it's this whole attitude that these particular type of Christians have, that because we're Christians, the rules don't apply to us.
Right.
We can do whatever we want.
What we say cannot be, by definition, like rude
or
and
offensive.
Yeah. But anybody who says anything against them,
well, that's offensive.
That's rude and offensive.
Right.
No, so, I'm sorry. It just doesn't work that way.
You know, and as Vic and I were talking about on the show last week, this whole issue, that particular caller was being very sarcastic about, oh, well, it's voting, and how dare anyone vote? You can't just because we vote on some things in this country doesn't mean we get to vote on everything. And if something's the law of the land, it's the law of the land. Yeah, and you can't break the law just because you get together in a group and take a vote. If all these students had gotten together before the football game and voted that they all wanted to do a rail of Coke, okay, that wouldn't mean that our nation's drug laws were temporarily suspended that night just so they could have their fun. The law's the law. You don't vote on everything in this country. Anyway, there's an interesting footnote here that I just glanced at, thought I ought to read. It just says that in Santa Fe Independent School District versus Doe, the High Court will focus on prayer at the football games. In accepting the case, justices chose to pass on disputes involving public school graduation ceremonies. Even so, a ruling could be used to someday prompt the court to visit that issue. Meanwhile, an ABC News poll released today suggests that, quote, public support for school prayer extends beyond the classroom. Most Americans also say students should be able to lead prayers at after-school activities, such as sporting events. 67% of those responding to the telephone poll said that students should be permitted to lead prayers at after-school events, while 27% disagreed. 80% of those who identify themselves as Republicans supported student-led prayer, while 59% of Democrats and 61% of independents favored the practice as well. As usual, educational levels seem to influence attitudes about prayer in public. Lower income and less educated Americans are more apt to support student-led prayer. So are Southerners and Midwesterners, noted the ABC poll. Just a interesting. You may take that as you may.
Yeah, let me give you.
We're not editorializing at the show.
Yeah, let me give you another little fact about the Santa Fe School District thing, which reveals even a bit more what a sham it was. The election for a student to give a message at football games and graduation ceremonies involved slightly less than 5% of the student body. Okay, so 95% of the students were basically indifferent and didn't vote. So the majority said we don't care, which apparently is not good enough for the school district to defend. The student that was elected decided they were going to back out and not give a message because they were getting pressure because they had said, well, I'm not going to give a prayer because the school district was still operating under an injunction from the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that there couldn't be a religious message at the football game. So after there was pressure on the first student, she backed out, and then the student that's giving the messages now, the prayers, was second in line, and she's the Baptist minister's daughter. Right. So there's your good example right there that while it was a majority of vote of 58 to 1, to have a student-led message that could be a prayer, there were 1,140 students who did not vote, and the student that was elected said, well, I'm not going to give a prayer since that would violate the court ruling, and they were harassed out of their job, and so they got a student who would give a prayer. That gives you an idea of just how directly intent that school district is on making it an issue of where they are going to have prayers, they are going to have religious messages, and if you look at the school rules, they don't support or defend student freedom of speech or student free expression in any other area. Just the one area that lets them pray at football games.
Yeah. Right. But also the relevant fact that nobody seems to be mentioning is that the Santa Fe school, the school who led their team, got their butts kicked. I mean, it was a rout, wasn't it? It was.
Well, they lost every game that year. They didn't ever scored more than 10 points, and they were traditionally trounced by between 30 and 60 points. So, well, I guess, but that's not a sign from God, apparently.
I guess God.
No, come on. But that's as I understand it, they will argue that these are not invocations to God to help them or let them win. That they're just sort of generic, thanks for everything, and then please don't let anyone get hurt. I'd be more interested in statistics on like injuries on the field during the year that they had the prayers and previous years, because that might be more enlightening, given what their actual claims are about what the prayers are for.
Well, I think God was probably just busy watching Body Shaping on ESPN2 that night. It wasn't. Okay.
More news.
Yes, more news. And an interesting sort of what I consider to be a contrast to this. This is from the Boston Globe. A survey finds no surge in religious activity, throwing cold water on the widespread notion that America is experiencing a spiritual revival. Christian pollster George Barna says that notion is more myth than reality. Barna's conclusion, it's my first day with my new tongue, people, so just give me a break. Barna's conclusion coincides with an annual survey he released recently that found little change in religious behavior and practices among Americans. Quote, whether that is measured by church attendance, born-again status, or theological purity, whatever those phrases mean, the statistics simply do not reflect a surge of any noticeable proportions, Barna said. The increase in Bible reading may be setting the stage for such a revival, but it does not appear to be occurring at the moment. Barna, who runs a Christian polling organization based in Ventura, California, noted that his survey found 40% of American adults attend church on Sunday, down from the early 1990s when nearly half of all adults said they did. Barna said there is no significant evidence to document any increase in Christian men's spiritual activity. Quote, there is reason to believe that America experienced a small increase in the proportion of men who are born again between 1990 and 2000, he said. But, he added, the increase in the proportion of women who are born again was double that of men during the decade. The Barna survey was based on telephone interviews with a random sampling of 1,002 adults nationwide and has a margin of error of plus or minus 3 percentage points.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because this is not the first time that I've heard from this Mr. Barna.
Okay.
I have another article here. This was posted on the web by Dan Barker of Freedom from Religion Foundation.
Yeah.
In George Barna's book, The Second Coming of the Church, Word Publishing, 1998, Barna, who is a born-again Christian sociologist, founder, and president of the Barna Research Group, released these results. These are frank statistics showing how the present church has failed in its mission. The numbers are based on his own studies and other national studies. On page 6, he gives a table, examples of the similarity of behavior between Christians and non-Christians. Having been divorced among those who have been married, born-again Christians, 27% have been divorced. Non-Christians, 23%. That's less. Gave money to a homeless or poor person in the last year. Born-again Christians, 24%. Non-Christians, 34%. That's more, isn't it?
It sure is.
Took drugs or medication prescribed for depression in the past year. Born-again Christians, 7%. Non-Christians, 8%.
So 1 percentage point.
1% more.
Well, more of us are a little depressed because we're constantly getting harangued by the Christians. So.
Watched an X-rated movie in the past 3 months. Born-again Christians, 9%. Non-Christians, 16%. Well, clearly in the watching the dirty movies category, we're all in favor of that free speech.
Let's hear it for lust.
Read all or part of a book for pleasure in the past week. Born-again Christians, 50%. We know which book that would probably have been.
Probably, yeah.
Non-Christians, 57%. Donated.
It's either the Bible or the latest issue of Hustler, one of them.
Donated any more money to a non-profit organization in the past month. Born-again Christians, 47%. Non-Christians, 48%.
Okay.
Bought a lottery ticket in the past week. Born-again Christians, 23. Non-Christians, 27.
Okay.
Attended a community meeting on a local issue in the past year. Born-again Christians, 37%.
Right.
Non-Christians, 42%. So, and there's more, but I think I'll stop now.
Yeah.
My concern is that when I hear about a born-again Christian reporting these cold, hard facts about what their actual people are doing, I get a little suspicious and I start looking for motive. And I fear that part of the motive may be as fuel for Pat Robertson to get on TV and say, we've got to do more, folks, so send us even more money.
Yeah. Well, it scotches this whole idea that the only way to be a moral person is to believe in the supernatural.
Yeah.
Where that came from, who knows? But anyway, well, let's continue with the news since we're still waiting on some callers. Science news this morning. Genetic differences suggest evolution is unlikely from Neanderthals. The study says Neanderthal DNA tests counter prevailing theory. I think an issue a few months back of Scientific American touched on this. DNA extracted from a 29,000-year-old bone has cast doubt on the theory that modern humans evolved in part from squat, heavy-browed Neanderthals, researchers say, except Pauly Shore. Researchers compared DNA from a Neanderthal skeleton found in Russia with an older sample tested in 1997. While the two Neanderthal samples turned out to be just 3.5% different from each other, they were roughly 7% different from DNA in modern humans. Scientists consider that to be a substantial gap. Quote, "It all points away from the Neanderthal," said one of the researchers, William Goodwin, a molecular biologist at the Human Identification Centre in Glasgow, Scotland. The findings are being published in Thursday's issue of the journal Nature. The researchers challenged the theory that modern humans evolved at least partly from Neanderthals, which some believe mated in large numbers with modern Europeans before disappearing 28,000 years ago. If that had happened, some argue, today's Europeans would show stronger genetic similarities to Neanderthals than other humans do. Yet the latest DNA analysis shows Neanderthal DNA to be no closer to Europeans than other modern humans. Originating in Africa, Neanderthals and their forebears occupied modern Europe from about 300,000 years ago. They were adapted to the cold conditions of the Ice Age and had stocky bodies, thick bones, and enormous strength. Though their stone tools seem similar to those of modern humans, who started to enter Europe from Asia about 35,000 years ago, they ceased to flourish and abruptly disappeared throughout their home range about 28,000 years ago, leaving no clues in the archaeological record for their extinction. Extinction is that word. I got it in one. The 29,000-year-old Neanderthal DNA, which was recovered from a rib bone in a baby skeleton found in Russia's Caucasus Mountains, was in better condition. Just read the damn story. Yes, I'm trying, and it's hard. Spring forward, whatever. Anyway. The 29,000-year-old Neanderthal DNA, I'll get it someday, was recovered from a rib bone in a baby skeleton found in Russia's Caucasus Mountains. It was in better condition than the roughly 40,000-year-old Neanderthal DNA from Germany analyzed in 1997. It's interesting. Just more news about how we evolved and how we got here and how the different branches...
Yeah, for those of you watching at home.
Yes. And now when you translate that for the Guy News, that means that sex with a Neanderthal is just for pleasure, not procreation.
Right, there we go.
And it does not mean, for those creationists watching, it does not mean that there was no evolution taking place. It just means Neanderthals were not our direct ancestors.
Yeah, there were many...
They were a side branch.
Yeah, there were many little species of hominids flourishing at that time, and Homo sapiens just won the genetic lotto, as it were. Okay, anyway, on with a little bit more news here. A follow-up on the report a couple weeks ago about these horrible cult murders in Africa. Yes.
Well, a Christian cult, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, originally, as you might recall, they found 300 or so bodies in a burned church and thought it was a mass suicide. Now they have found many, many, many more bodies and suspected it is mass murder. Authorities investigating the deaths of hundreds of followers of an apocalyptic cult suspect they were killed when they began to doubt their leaders' repeatedly postponed predictions of the end of the world and demanded their money back. Wow, okay. Police discovered a third mass grave yesterday.
Okay, murder isn't funny.
No,
it's funny. It is funny to finally have an example of people getting fed up with these stupid-ass doomsday predictions and retaliating against the people that made them up. And it just shows the unscrupulousness of the kinds of creep who would get money by making up stories of the impending end of the world, make a bunch of money off of people, and then kill them when those people complained. Yeah, this is how low they'll go. Police discovered a third mass grave yesterday, and by day's end had pulled the bodies of 28 people, including 3 children, from beneath a recently poured concrete floor in the home of Dominic Kataribabo, a defunct priest who was one of the cult's leaders. At nightfall, searchers were smashing through the floors of other rooms in a search for more victims. On Monday, police had dug up the bodies of 77 people from a field behind Kataribabo's house. Earlier, police found 153 bodies buried in the village of Kahunga, near where a fire 12 days ago engulfed about 400 members of the sect who had crammed into a church in what was first thought to be a mass suicide. The discovery yesterday of the third mass grave in southwestern Uganda raises the number of people thought to have been killed by the cult leaders to close to 800. Police investigators believe another 200 people who were in the church compound at the time of the blaze are also dead, their bodies still missing, along with hundreds more members who were until recently bound by blind obedience
to leaders of the Movement for the Restoration of the Ten Commandments of God. That's the name of this cult.
Oh, it's so important that we get those 10 Commandments back in school, because it's clear that if you like, hold up the 10 Commandments as the ultimate rules of behavior,
nobody will ever do anything
Nobody
bad.
will ever get hurt.
No, ever. No, never do anything bad. The leaders, whose whereabouts remained a mystery, had prophesied that the end of the world was imminent, but over a period of 8 years since the initial prediction for 1992, they repeatedly postponed the date, most recently to December 31st. Investigators suspect that when the date came and went uneventfully, some members who had patiently endured a strictly regimented life in the group rebelled. Many had sold their properties to join the cult and wanted their money back. Quote, when you compel someone to sell their land at 4 million Ugandan shillings, or $5,400, that's a lot of money, said the Reverend Paul Ikaziri, an 84-year-old Catholic priest who left the cult after 4 years in 1994. Quote, when I saw they wanted to make their own religion, I said, no, I'm a Catholic priest, I cannot separate from the bishop and the pope. Ikaziri said at his house less than a mile from Katari Baba's house. Most of the 77 victims found Monday behind the house had been strangled or poisoned, said Dr. Thaddeus Barungi, chief pathologist. The house was surrounded by throngs of curious neighbors who said they were at a loss to explain how so many people could have been killed and buried without anyone knowing. One of those watching was Katari Baba's brother, Harrison Oryanawe, whose house stands no more than 60 feet from the grave. He was a humorous man, Oryanawe said of his brother. I never imagined this. Ikazari did. After dropping out of the group, he said he observed the cult's practices and turned over his findings to Catholic Church authorities, who condemned the movement, defrocked its leaders, and forbade Catholics to join them. But cult leader Joseph Kibutire, who claimed he was getting messages from Jesus, nevertheless attracted a following of 4,000 people by the estimate of a Parliament commission. Cult members ate little, prayed incessantly, fasted twice a week, woke up at 3 a.m. every day, and were not allowed to read books or listen to music or the news. The only It's like, you know, how to be a houseplant cult. And the only permissible communication was sign language, said Ikazari, and the message had to be brief. What's up with that? We go, now we can see that it was premeditated and planned, said Paulie Tumwini, 38, the deputy.
No, really, he's a mass
People allowed to communicate. Jesus had ordered you don't compare notes. But eventually they did compare notes. Faced with demands to repay the money, followers had turned over.
My husband disappeared yesterday.
Yes. No, you're not supposed to. Faced with demands to repay the money, followers had turned over to him. Authorities believe Kibutiri enlisted his closest partners, among them a former prostitute, Caledonia Noiride, and set about killing the dissidents. Ugh. The discovery of more bodies yesterday lent new urgency to a nationwide search of suspected grave sites. Cult leaders had branched off from their headquarters at Rukungiri, not far from the church in Kanungu, and set up several communes. 5 communes were targeted by police for immediate searches, along with the private properties of the cult's leaders. The first indication that the deaths were murder, not suicide, came with the discovery of 6 bodies in a pit latrine outside the church, in which more than 400 died on March 17th. The stomachs of 3 had been cut open, and the others had been stabbed, or their skulls had been crushed. Because the bodies of neither Kibutiri nor Noiride were found in the ashes of the church fire, authorities believe they might be in hiding. Ikaziri described Kibutiri as an intolerant, temperamental man who suffered epileptic seizures. Quote, I remember once in church there were children playing and he went to them in a rage, but he fell down. Ikaziri said he was on the ground for 1, maybe 2 minutes. Weirdness. Just bizarre.
I was going to ask, where's the money? But clearly these people made off with it.
Yeah, it's just in some Swiss bank somewhere, or just whatever.
Good grief. Now, as mass murders go, 800 is a pretty good score.
Yeah, that's
right. I just...
It's grim. I mean,
just another example of the wonderful way that religion helps people get along.
Okay.
Although,
you know,
is that it for the news?
There's one more piece, but I thought we might listen to Don first and see what he has to say on line 1.
Okay, Don has been waiting patiently for a while. Let's take a call.
Well, good morning. Did anybody look at how are you people this morning?
Good. How are you?
Hey, did anyone look at the Insight, the editorial page in the American Statesman this morning?
No.
Well,
we rushed out the door because I was afraid I was going to be late.
Marvin Olinsky, the professor.
Oh, good grief.
That guy.
He's an occasional advisor to George Bush. In an interview with the Journal of Biblical Manhood and Womanhood, he said that God does not forbid women to be leaders in society, generally speaking. But if you do, if you elect them as leaders, it's a shame. He said he would vote for them, but it would be a shame. It would be a certain shame to be attached with such indignities.
Indignities.
Yeah, that's what he's inferring here.
Yeah.
He said he would vote for him, but he said it would be a shame to put a woman up there.
Well, every time he prints one of his editorials, at least, a good handful of just, what's up with this idiot letters tend to fluck into the Statesman's.
University of Texas journalism professor speaking the way he does, and he expects everybody to write articles like he wants them to. Give me a break.
Yeah, he's a nitwit, but the thing is, his biases are clear, and and it's fairly obvious where he's coming from. So, well,
I thought maybe that would start you off this morning.
Well, it's grist for the mill.
I've already been started off. I've got people praying for me and making me want to go to church. This morning they was telling me that I'm going to have to get to church. And I was a little indignant about them, and they was talking about prayer in school, the same thing that you people started out. And he said, it's going to come back, it's going to be in the schools, and I said, not as long as I'm here, I don't think so. And he was telling me...
But it could happen,
Oh, yeah.
Other countries have been engulfed by fundamentalism, right? Mm-hmm. And I think we all need to take a good hard look at how those countries turn out.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another gentleman told me, he said, if you went to Catholic school like I did, he said, you'd be there. And I said, yeah, you get beat, I said, so they beat it into me. Yeah. And I said, no, thanks. And I said, I can think for myself. And they got all indignant, and I did too. And I pulled a Jeff Dees and hung up on him.
No, I try not to do that as much as I possibly can.
Pull a Jeff D.
But anyway,
that was just a boisterous morning for Jeff.
I think you'll note that if you turn to any of the fundamentalist TV shows, they'll hang up like instantly as soon as they get any kind of objection to what they have to say.
Any dissenting point of view, they call it.
I hang up.
Oh yeah.
On a recent show, I hung up on one guy after we talked to him for about 20 minutes.
I know,
and it wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And another guy, I hung up on him when he said he was going to try to convert one of the children, one of the atheist children on our show, right on the show. We just
That's
can't
what
have
this guy
that.
is.
That's just ridiculous.
Well, yeah.
How dare he?
Yeah. I mean, if. Lots of gall. Well, it's always fun when you call, Don.
Okay, I wanted to know if you'd like to have a little bit of fun this morning.
Oh, well, we always like to have fun.
Yeah, and be sure and point out to those people who are praying for you that nothing fails like prayer, because you always still end up an atheist.
Well, I already told them that. I said, if prayer does such good things, I said, how come when I was in a foxhole in Korea and the guy next to me was praying and I wasn't praying, he got killed and I'm still here? I said, something's wrong with the program.
I guess you're like mentally stronger than their God, because he doesn't seem to be able to reach into your mind and pull mind control on you.
Oh yeah. Well, when I die, according to them, I'll come to God because I want to go to heaven.
Yeah, and he'll go flick, and you'll spend your eternity in hellfire.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? And for all the horrible crimes that you've committed.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I really commit a lot of crimes. I like everybody. I joke, laugh. And I don't criticize anybody, but I'm not a Christian, so I can't do that.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's the thing.
Unbelievable. Well, thanks for your call.
See ya.
All right, bye-bye.
Yeah, as I pointed out one time to some Christian who was talking to me, I said, he's talking about how God wants to reach out to you, and God, desperately wants everyone's love and wants to live. And I said, well, if God really, wants your love, why does he feel it's necessary to threaten you with eternal torture if you say no thanks?
Right.
Yeah.
Why can't he manage it? That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Right.
That's right.
If there is a omnipotent being that really wants me to worship him, I'll wind up worshiping him, right? Because I am not omnipotent. Omnipotence trumps non-omnipotence every time.
Pretty much. Yeah.
And so it's the whole free will thing,
Right. Still.
That's right. Which is also a lame argument, and if any Christians want to call in and try to run that argument, we'll tell you exactly what's wrong with it.
We'll be happy to play ball with that one.
Do you want to do your last news story?
I will do the last news story, and then we will...
Caller, if you'll stay on the line, we'll get to you in just a second.
Yeah, we'll talk to John here in just a second, but I'll just do my last piece, kind of an amusing bit here. Harry Potter, that popular best-selling book series that has the Christians all riled up because it's not stumping their faith, has been banned in a British school. Harry Potter, the fictional young wizard who has captured children's imaginations all over the world, has been banished from one English school because his magical powers go against the teachings of the Bible. The head teacher of St. Mary's Island Church of England School in Chatham, Kent, says the tales of wizardly adventures do not conform with her school's church ethos. Okay, now if it's an openly religious school, okay, we understand, because they're out there kind of promulgating nonsense anyway, and so nonsense versus nonsense, it's all just a big slugfest. It would probably be more noteworthy if this were a public school, but it's still funny, so I thought I'd bring it on the air. Some of the things they say, such as this: the Bible is very clear and consistent in its teachings that wizards, devils, and demons exist and are very real, powerful, and dangerous, and God's people are told to have nothing to do with them. Carol Rockwood told the BBC on Wednesday. We're a Church of England aided primary school, which means the church ethos is very important to what we do. The Harry Potter adventure books, written by Scottish author J.K. Rowling, have already sold more than 18 million copies in the United States alone. The fourth book in the series, in which Harry begins taking an interest in girls and confronts death for the first time, hopefully not at the same time, is due out on July 8th, but early orders have already taken it to the top of the internet bookseller Amazon's Hot 100 bestseller list. The British head teacher said she had the full support of parents of children at her school. She added that the ban applied to other books, videos, and television programs that portray witches and wizards as harmless and fun characters. But clearly, I mean, this is, you know, I mean, talk about, okay, look, fantasy, reality. Learn to tell the difference.
Right.
Okay?
Enjoying fantasy is perfectly okay. Believing fantasy is not okay.
Okay.
I would be right with anybody who said that we got to be concerned about little kids reading these books and actually believing they're true. Sure, we got to believe. We got to be worried about that. But the problem is, these people already believe fantasies.
Yeah. But the point is, you know, the Harry Potter series is getting kids reading.
Yeah.
In an age when people have been afraid that kids' minds are just getting soggy and that all a kid ever wants to do is sit around and play PlayStation all day, and literacy is a dying art. You know, J.K. Rowling's books have whatever you might think, and I've been meaning to read them. I want to read them, but I haven't. You know, they are getting kids reading books for entertainment, which is something that a lot of doomsayers have feared has been a dead practice. And so, for that alone, you know, I mean, anything that gets kids reading, you know, I'm all for it.
That statistic again, born-again Christians read all or part of a book for pleasure in the past week, 50%. Non-Christians, 57%.
Right, so, anyway.
And I think we now know part of why that statistic, where there's that statistical difference.
Yes. Shall we talk to John?
Yeah, let's go ahead. He's been kind enough to stay on the line. Hi, John.
Yeah, devil worshippers.
That's it?
That's it?
Thanks for your call.
All right, whatever.
We're not devil worshippers. We don't believe in him either.
Yes.
I have a few quick announcements, and then I want to get to
wait a minute.
Howard.
That guy hung on for, what, 15 minutes just so he could say that? That's hilarious. Dude, go back to bed.
There isn't a devil.
That's where we'd rather
folks,
be.
There's no devil.
Yes.
If there was a devil, it would make no sense, because there's no way. Again, omnipotence trumps non-omnipotence every time. There is no way you have an omnipotent God and then there's this other guy that's causing trouble.
Yeah.
It couldn't possibly work like that. The whole idea is completely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
there will be a screening of the South Park movie at Russell Glasser's home. Hi, Russell. On Saturday, April 8 at 7 p.m. For directions, you can email Russell if you have his address, or call the ACA voicemail at 512-371-2911. And Russell, I understand, is also handing out flyers at the bagel shop. Is that correct? He's nodding. Russell's behind the camera today.
Yeah.
Or at First Cafeteria today.
Yeah.
At the First Cafeteria today.
Although last week you did hand out flyers, so.
Okay.
There we are. Russell's
He's looking kind of grumpy.
looking at the wall.
Should I not have announced this, or is that cool? Okay. Just a
No address, please.
No, we're not going to do that. Just a reminder again, today is, of course, lecture day at First Cafeteria instead of our normal meeting at the bagel shop. That's First Cafeteria at North Cross Mall at 11 o'clock. Howard Thompson will be our speaker, and he is a local atheist activist and publisher of the e-newsletter, The Texas Atheist. And his topic today will be, there's Texas Atheist. Let's get a close-up on that while I read what your topic is going to be. Howard's topic will be getting out of the atheist closet in a Christian culture.
Oh, I'm very much looking forward to hearing that.
That's the Texas Atheist. Okay. And one last announcement, Religion, Humanism, and Science in the 21st Century Conference. April 15 to 16 this year at Braeswood Hotel and Convention Center in Houston. I believe that is.
Yes.
This is sponsored by the Houstonians for Secular Humanism. It's a 2-day conference featuring several workshop speakers and a banquet. The event is open to all humanists, freethinkers, atheists, agnostics, and adherents of all religions. And they have a number of workshops. I will just read the titles. Evolution, Astrobiology and the Origins of Life, Cultural and Technological Evolution, Artificial Intelligence, The Future of Woman, Intergroup Workshop, Banquet with keynote speaker Paul Kurtz. He is a noted philosopher and editor of Free Inquiry magazine. The Future of Religion and Humanism, Y2K, Year of Crisis for Church-State Separation, and that's it. And for more information, contact coordinator Robert Finch at area code 281-491-1608 or email rdfinch, one word, at flash.net. And for hotel information, you can call the Braeswood Hotel at 713-797-9000. That's all my announcements for today.
And those are what dates?
That is, once again,
April
15th. It's actually
2 days.
It's actually 2 days.
Yeah, April 15th and
15th and 16th.
So weekend
Right.
after next?
Yes, that's correct.
All right.
No conflict with the South Park viewing,
So,
for those of you concerned about that. Okay, so Howard,
Yes.
welcome back to the show.
Glad to
Always
be
a
here.
pleasure to have you on.
Glad to be here.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, I thought what I would talk about is what is actually really another news item, but it's also relates to atheist activism, and you participated in this one also yesterday. Because we had...
Ooh, so maybe we should start as far as Wednesday, because there was
Wednesday.
something on Wednesday, too.
Well, that's what we'd already briefly mentioned the rally,
Okay.
Respect Our Constitution rally, in conjunction with the Supreme Court hearing oral arguments in the school football game prayer case. We did that. We already talked about that. But we also, yesterday, had one of the stages in the process whereby some atheists and freethinkers and humanists and other non-theists around the state got together in a little bit of an organization, again under the label Respect Our Constitution, and we decided we wanted to get involved in the political process and begin to learn about it, because we hardly ever see the politicians talk about our issues, and there are a lot of things that we are definitely concerned about. So beginning about 7 or 8 weeks ago, we developed an idea, and we spread the idea among the various groups in Texas. We came up with 3 resolutions for people to take to their precinct primaries, convention meetings after the elections on the 14th, I believe it was, of March. And these were basically non-theistic resolutions. The 3 resolutions were: one for equal rights for non-theists, because the Texas Constitution says you have to have a belief in a supreme being, though that one has really been set aside, the language still appears. But also, if you want to hold public office, you have to have a belief in a supreme being to hold public office. You also have to take a God oath, an oath that ends in "So help me God," if you want to hold public office, so that any honest non-theistic person in the state cannot hold public office, even though the Constitution says there shall be no religious test for office. The U.S. Constitution says that. So that was one resolution. Another resolution was one that arises out of some of our dealings with public officials across the state who seem extremely ignorant of the facts of the Constitution, how godless it is, and the fact that it really does separate religion from government. And that resolution was to mandate education on constitutional separation of religion from government for all elected officials in Texas, because we can't expect them to uphold the Constitution if they're too lazy to read the Constitution and understand it, and understand the court cases and the history behind it. The third one was related to excellence in science education. What we wanted was a resolution that would take away from the State Board of Education authority for science textbooks, and to give that to scientists, in particular a committee of scientists from the state colleges was recommended as a way of doing this. The idea being that elected officials, public officials, shouldn't be making decisions about what is scientific accuracy and what is scientific fact, but that should be left up to the scientists. I'm pleased to report that we had a number of people go to precinct conventions in the Houston area, in the San Antonio area, in the Austin area, some in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, in areas in Bandera County and Wichita Falls, and Abilene and other places around the state, Seguin. And in Travis County, by the time they got through voting on the resolutions, all 3 of our resolutions got passed by the Democratic Convention of Travis County.
Yay.
So we had a victory.
Yeah. Yes.
And as Jeff and I stood there and passed out materials, and Rodney Florence, who's an Atheist Community of Austin member who was the initiator of this idea 2 years ago, and we kind of continued and built on it this year, as we passed out flyers and things on this, we got a fair amount of positive response from people. When Rodney got up with our big Respect Our Constitution sign, keep church and state separate, and walked in front of the podium as the minister was giving the prayer, we got some laughs and applause from the audience for that. So we got a pretty good reception, we feel. And just to give you an idea of what can happen with only a handful of people, really, because we only had like 4 people we knew were delegates. I ran into or found out about later there was another
that convention.
At that county convention,
right.
And I found out later there were at least 3 other subscribers to the newsletter, the Texas Atheist of mine, that were there also that I didn't know about until I ran into them or found out about them otherwise. That when we get organized and get out there and learn the process and understand it, and Rodney does from his years involvement in gay and lesbian activism, that we can have an effect. In fact, there were 2 other non-theistic resolutions that passed also about non-discrimination against people in workplace who are non-religious. Those got passed also. So out of about 30 resolutions that got passed at the Travis County Convention, 5 of them were non-theistic resolutions. So we did good.
Yeah.
I personally handed out one of our brochures to Gonzalo Barrientos, who was examining the sign stuck between the seats at that point. Rodney gave one of our brochures to Lloyd Doggett. And I think he also got Jim Maddox. Rodney's pretty good about getting in there and handing these things out. So nothing's going to change in terms of how we get harassed and hassled in schools and the workplace and by families and friends. But by being out in public, by putting our issues out there, we are finding that there is support for general ideas like separation of religion from government. There are people who realize that yes, non-theists are discriminated against and we deserve equal civil rights, and we can get support for that, so we don't have to be afraid to get out there. Might have to put up a little flack, might have to put up a little bad-mouthing and back talk, but we can do it, and we will do more next time, and we have delegates going forward from the San Antonio area and the Austin area at least, and perhaps the Houston area to the state convention, Democratic convention in Dallas. We also had delegates going to the Republican convention meetings. We had people participating in Green Party and Libertarian Party activities. And I don't know how the 2 non-theists that we know of who went to the Republican meeting here in Travis County, how that went for them, because it was in the Praise Tabernacle Choir, if that gives you any idea of how closely linked the Republicans are with religion. But we had a minor little victory just by getting out and trying to participate and being active. Yeah.
Susan, I forget her last name.
But I thought Mark indicated that actually went pretty well.
The thing is, he had different resolutions to work with.
Right.
These ones we were just talking about didn't get submitted to the Republicans, and it's because of lack of organization.
Yes.
And not because we didn't think that they would they would pass, but we don't think they would pass. He had his own resolution about
letting kids keep
their textbooks. And had we been organized, we should have got copies of his resolution and submitted to the Democrats, because both parties are big on education, and that's great. We talked about. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, I was just.
Sure.
I had.
We talked about the precinct conventions a couple of weeks ago,
right?
And I found the same kind of thing at the county convention that I found at the precinct conventions, at least in the Democratic Party. And I want to say this while prefacing it by pointing out this is a nonpartisan effort. I went here only because I vote for that party. Okay. But this effort is nonpartisan. We encourage anybody who's interested in these issues in any party to go and get involved in their party's activities. At least the Democratic convention, precinct and county conventions, that people were accepting of the issues. There was low attendance in general, so there were plenty of opportunities to get involved if you wanted to get involved. I know for a fact that they had trouble coming up with enough delegates from the county convention to meet the number that they were allowed to send to the state convention. Had there been 20 more atheists there at that convention, every single one of us could have gone on to the state level and been involved all the way up that chain. So I don't know what the state is of attendance in the other parties or what the opportunities are, but there seem to be opportunities for us to make an impact.
And it doesn't take a supreme amount of intelligence. You don't have to be, able to sit there and, like you're on one of the Sunday talk shows and people are, shooting at you. That's not what it's about at all. These are workaday, average people who are getting out and getting involved in politics, have some issue they're interested in or a couple of issues they're interested in, or just believe that you should participate in the process of democracy and have your say. We atheists and free thinkers and humanists can do that too. And in many ways, those of us who are to some degree involved in groups and participate at the level of a lot of us do in Texas, we already have a lot of experience with our issues and talking about them. We already have a lot of experience in arguing and defending positions and understanding what's going on. And I didn't see anything in the discussions that occurred on any of the resolutions yesterday, or the private discussions and what was going on, that was in any way as competitive or demanding as what a lot of atheists and free thinkers and humanists already go through, just arguing amongst ourselves about what atheism is or free thinking is or humanism is, plus our issues. So this is an area wide open for us, that not that we could take over any political party, because there are not enough of us, but there's certainly enough of us to get out there and get our issues heard, and get hundreds and hundreds and thousands of other people who are involved in politics aware that they're non-theists involved, aware that we have issues, aware that we participate, so that we're not completely ignored. Because as long as we don't do anything, the fact that we're ignored is our fault. It's not really the fault of the religious right. They've earned their respect, they've earned their power, they've gotten out and done the work. We haven't done that, so we can complain and whine, but unless we're willing to put the effort in, we really don't have a case.
That's just, I mean, it's still, we're a very young group, right?
Yes.
And so, the fact that we're, kind of hitting the ground running in that, I think is, I meant to make the Wednesday rally. I really wanted to. I was out location scouting for some film stuff that didn't end up happening this weekend because it rained. So.
Well, we'll put you down on the good excuses.
We had a low turnout, but considering that it was the middle of the week, the middle of the day, the middle of the week, I had to play hooky from work for 2 hours. I couldn't even stay for the whole thing. It was heartening to see that there were people who cared enough about it.
Yes, and the best thing about that rally was we had 3 high school students show up on the front steps of the Capitol who'd heard about it through my newsletter, who cut school, to show up for this. And they're experiencing troubles in their high school here in Austin, and they were interested in it. And they were glad.
Trouble when I was in high school.
Yeah, and they were glad to realize that they're not isolated, they're not alone, that there are other people that share their concerns. And none of them were atheists in particular, but they were glad to see that these kind of things were going on. All of them got a chance to come up to the microphone and speak, because we let everybody talk that wants to, and we have one of these things. And I'm going to go talk to their little group in the high school later on, it looks like. So we have young people that are experiencing the problems in schools that we're talking about and suffering from it. And this turned out to be a little bit of a contact with 3 students in one school. And I think that was the high point of it for me.
Yeah, that's great.
Speaking of rights for non-theists, and separation of church and state and all of that good stuff, Thursday, I'm going to experience the joy of jury duty. And I was called down to the Austin City Coliseum, I think weekend before last, to have the big cattle call and everything. And of course they make you stand. They make everyone stand up en masse and take an oath, which is a God oath.
Yes.
And so I, after that, and they said, okay, well, everyone who kind of has an excuse that they think is good, stand in this line. And so I got in the line. I didn't end up having to go up all the way because I just ended up, the bailiff was going up and down, and I explained to him, look, I don't have a problem with serving jury duty. I've actually never done it before, and I'm kind of interested in it, But the problem is, see, I'm not religious, and so I'm very uncomfortable taking an oath that contains the phrase "So help me God." And much to my pleasant surprise, he was He's completely understanding. He's like, that's fine, sir. And he explained to me that apparently there is a secular oath
Yes.
that I'll be allowed to take Thursday. I have to apparently go and inform the judge.
Yes.
Which is great, you know. But, of course, I think that the secular oath, though, just should be the oath.
Right. That should be the default. And then if somebody wants to bring their God into it, that should be an option available to them.
Well, but look at it this way. The Texas Constitution does allow for a non-religious oath, you know, whatever kind of oath is binding on a person. And for most people who believe in God, a religious oath probably is the binding oath on them. But I think that it would be better if courts immediately offered people right up front, just instead of presuming that everyone was going to take the religious oath, say, you know, if you are not religious and don't take a God oath, we'll, you know, give a second oath afterwards right then, so that people have the option and not kind of putting you into this coercion of you sort of have to take this oath because you're in court and the judge will get pissed at you if you don't.
Right. So, very interesting. We have another about 35 minutes on the air, folks. If you want to call and talk to us about anything at all, that number is 472-2255. Kind of a slow morning today for calls, but I figure everyone's still in bed.
I know, well, yeah, right.
Because, if
you're just tuning in now, it means you probably didn't set your clock ahead.
Yeah.
So we've got capital 10,000 and spring forward.
Yeah, but whether you're a Christian or atheist or whatever you are, give us a call and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about.
After the convention, we went across the street to Threadgill's.
Threadgill's, yes.
Where we met a young lady, attractive young lady who was a fan of the show, and I hope mentioning her on the show will embarrass her. And I wanted to mention that we've been talking about in the group bumper stickers that would make our message clear to people, and there are quite a few that are already available, but we came up with a couple of ideas. Here's one that was thunk up by our own Keith Burka. Huh? Okay, you get a.
And
atheism. It's not just for communists anymore. Now let me explain this to the irate atheists out there who are going, atheism was never for communists. It's a joke, folks. It's all right if the general public thinks that somehow there's a connection between atheism and communism other than a coincidental one. It's all right to say this to them, because the point of this is that even if that was ever true,
we're not all commies.
Well, tell the history of you were telling me earlier of atheism.
Oh no, I'm not. No, Keith's asking me to go into the history of atheism. I'm going to do that. I'm reading a book right now called Western Atheism: A Short History. I'm going to do a complete review of that book when I'm ready. But another bumper sticker that I want to do. Oh, you want to show that one? These are being handed out at the convention. I don't know. That might be a little bit too partisan.
Well, only if people think it is.
Okay, let's make it clear before we show this sticker that was handed out at the Democratic convention
that this is a partisan.
This is a partisan Democratic thing. We are not supporting this. We're just showing you what they said.
Even though it's absolutely true.
And it also has nothing to do with atheism. I'm not going to say that. I'm the host. I'm not allowed to say my... Oh, no, we're going to have to zoom in closer to get the joke.
Yeah, we get that?
Bum, ba-dum, bum.
Yeah.
I paid $2 cash money for that one.
But another atheist... Oh, I thought they were giving those out for free.
No, she was trying to raise money for a computer. Yeah.
You got a t-shirt that said that on it?
No. Oh. No, it's a different thing. Which I also can't wear on the show. Another bumper sticker that I want to do, and I especially want to do it now, having gone through now 2 phases of the primary process.
Yes.
Is a bumper sticker that says, "I'm an atheist and I vote." Our votes count, folks. We got to start using them.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, now we got a bunch of calls. It probably was your bumper sticker.
Somebody lit up the...
Do we have any? We don't have names yet. We're going to get the names, and then we'll go straight to these
political
calls.
name calling to get those calls in. Oh, well.
Again, we're a little short-handed in the crew again today, and so there's a slight delay.
Yeah, well, that thing went like the 4th of July all of a sudden.
And we're going to go to...
Peter.
Peter, hello?
How's it going?
Good morning.
How are you?
Fine.
Man, I'm great, thank God.
If you must.
Yeah.
I'm just curious about the oath thing.
Yeah.
Why does it matter? I mean, why do you guys need to take an oath if you don't believe in God? That's the whole basis behind the oath. Not
We're happy.
God oath.
No, we're happy to take an oath
But
that we will tell the truth.
What
It's
difference
just
does
that.
it make?
What difference does what make?
what difference does it make for you? You don't even believe in God. Why would I expect you to be an honest person?
Oh, it's insulting.
Well,
if nothing
wow,
else.
wow, that's kind of a,
That's
yeah.
why do you think we...
So you think, sir, hang on, sir.
Okay, wait a minute. One at a time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you think that belief in God equals honesty? Then explain Jimmy Swaggart, explain Jim Baker, explain the guy in Uganda who just killed 800 of his followers. He believed in God, and he lied to them.
No,
you think belief in God equals honesty, dude? You have been sold a snow job.
He says he believed in God, and
If he says he believes in God, you know, I mean, why shouldn't you take him seriously?
No, I'm just saying, what difference does it make if you lie or don't lie? Why would you need to take an oath? And who cares? Right?
Oh, well, we care because we have integrity,
no-
which seems to be a word you don't understand.
There's no consequence of anything you do, dude. Right? Oh, no, who cares, right?
There are real consequences. No,
Just
in
live
real...
and die?
Excuse me. In
There's
real
no
life...
consequence. You're a fucking loser.
Whatever.
Again, more rational comments from believers.
You know,
Wow.
so, folks, this is the kind of thing that we put up with day to day, and you know, this is a Christian for you.
Yeah.
This is what belief in God will do to your brain.
Now, I'm sure all the Christians out there are going, oh, that guy wasn't a real Christian.
Yeah, it makes you angry.
If he had love in his heart, he wouldn't say things like that.
Yeah, it makes you angry. It makes you it makes you intolerant. It makes you think you're better than everyone.
My turn.
You know, go ahead.
Religion does not make people into good people. It just doesn't. It's clear. All the statistics show. You look at that people in prison, the percentage of atheists in prison is lower than the percentage of atheists in the general public. If being an atheist, if not believing in God, made you a worse person, or if believing in God made you a better person, you would think that would be reflected. That this whole tactic of, oh, we'll write off anybody who claims to believe in God who gets caught not being perfect, okay? What you're going to do, if you apply that, is you'll find out there aren't any Christians, because none of you are perfect. Yet what you need to do is accept that your belief system does not make people better. In fact, the evidence is exactly the opposite. Do you have a comment? Or should we go to the next call?
Let's go to the next call.
All right. Hello, Mark.
Good morning, Martin, Jeff, and Howard.
Hi, Mark. I think we're going to get a report on the Republican county convention now.
Yes, I attended the convention yesterday.
Great.
And like to report that the school textbook idea passed.
Great.
Very good.
Could you quick summarize that for
In fact, I'll read the passage here. It says,
Yeah.
We call upon the Texas legislature and education officials to, 1, become informed about how the practice of letting K-12 children keep their math and science books is related to higher achievement. 2, find or develop suitable sets of inexpensive math and science books for K-12 children to keep. And 3, ensure that families, schools, and districts have the option to adopt and spend public funds on math and science books for their K-12 students to keep.
Okay.
All right.
Now, there were a couple of small changes from what I had originally proposed, but I'm pretty happy with it.
Great.
Tell us how it was out at the Praise Tabernacle Choir there, Mark.
Well, there were a lot of people there, and there were quite a few issues that I disagree with personally, as you can imagine. But we have to choose our fights, and
Yes.
This is the fight that I chose, and I was successful at this one.
Well, just out of curiosity, were there any particularly amusing or threatening sounding kind of resolutions that they passed?
Yes, there were, and what I'll do is I'll bring the preliminary platform document to the meeting today, and you can go over that.
Okay.
But I do want to report on one other platform that has some remnants of the support the Constitution, which are independent of that effort, I think. It starts, we believe that candidates who run for political office be required to read the appropriate booklets pertaining to the office they seek. Candidates running for federal office to read the U.S. Constitution and the Republican Party platform. And then it works down to the state and local stuff, too.
Okay.
Sounds like they don't think the Constitution applies to a school district, but I guess that's a minor point.
Well, yeah, well, that's something that can be worked on in the future. Yeah. Well, okay, I'll see you guys at the first cafeteria.
Yeah,
okay. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks for calling.
Thanks for calling. Bye-bye.
It's good that we had somebody, the Republican thing.
Yeah, and again, those of you just tuning in, you probably didn't set your clocks ahead. We're now 2/3 of the way through the show.
Yeah, we started an hour ago.
And we want to remind you that we have today our lecture by Howard Thompson at 11 o'clock at First Cafeteria at North Cross Mall. He'll be talking about getting out of the atheist closet in a Christian culture. And I'm also being reminded that our blood drive will be taking place on April 29. Yeah. I'll just add that to my notes so I can...
that's a good thing. Give up a little of the old vino and save a life.
Yeah, and what Mark was just talking about, for those who are just tuning in, is we had an effort across the state by non-theists that involved perhaps 30 or more of us. We're finding out more and more of us as time goes by to get involved in the political process, go to the precinct conventions after primary elections, get on to the county conventions and then the state conventions in the party of their choice. This is a nonpartisan kind of effort. And Mark was just telling us a little bit about what happened at the Travis County Republican Convention meeting yesterday, which was out in the Praise Tabernacle Choir Church. I keep repeating that because I think it's amusing. But I did hear from some other Republicans around the state who went to precinct meetings and did take the resolutions, and those resolutions were uniformly shot down, with only the non-theists who showed up being for them, plus also some stories of some very strange sounding religious kinds of resolutions getting passed in a few precincts. So it was kind of an interesting thing to do, but those non-theists who are Republicans, and there are quite a few of us, I believe, as maybe as many as half even across the state or something in that ballpark, they get involved too. And we have Libertarians and Green Party members and people who are interested in Reform Party or Jesse Ventura. And we're unlike God. We don't want to tell atheists to go to just any one political party. We think atheism is good for all political parties.
Yeah.
Go to the one that fits you.
There's nothing inherently wrong with any political party. I mean, there were issues at the Democratic convention that I disagreed with. I was just happy to see that there was some serious debate on those issues, even though some of them passed in ways that I don't personally agree with.
The phone number to call is 472-2255. It's not up on screen right now, so anyone who's just tuning in thinking we're just starting, we've actually been on the air for an hour and 6 minutes, not 6 minutes. So saw this the other day. Any person of an atheist bent who was scanning last week's newsstands might have been kind of creeped out to see this. Cover of March 27th Newsweek. Big article on Jesus. Visions of Jesus, how Jews, Muslims, and Buddhists view him. Well, I read this because I usually like to read whatever it is that the mainstream media is trying to sell us about this. And from an atheist standpoint, this article is really only noteworthy for its complete irrelevance to anything. It's just about how members of other religions think about Jesus, and it really, I don't see, has any bearing on. It's certainly not news. So clearly, this is just an attempt to sell magazines, which, from a business standpoint, I can't really hold that against Newsweek. But still, it's pretty cheesy on to think that this is really something that sure, it might matter to a bunch of people personally. But as far as being world news, I mean, when we have also in here the whole new Russian president who's been elected, I think that has a lot more bearing on what's going to happen on the worldwide scene in terms of newsworthiness. I mean, come on, if you're a news magazine, put news on the cover and leave this kind of thing for like the back pages, the special interest, what have you. But just pretty odd.
Well, we have some more calls. Let's go ahead
and talk to Ed.
Ed?
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to call and let y'all know you are doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
I know that you sometimes take some hits out there. You have a lot more courage than I do.
Well, that's so, you got to be out there to take them, I figure.
Yeah.
Christians who call in and tell us we're going to hell. That doesn't count as a hit. I'd have to believe in it first for it to make any impact whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right.
And the ones who call us nasty names just sort of make themselves look bad, and we don't really have to respond to them. We just kind of go there, you see?
Yeah.
I also wanted to know if you guys, did you hear of any other Jesus sightings? There was some kind of Jesus in a tree or something this week.
Arlo's not here. Our own Arlo Pignati, who's normally here doing the sound, went to see the tree. and has an amusing story that he typed up and sent out on our mailing list. We'll try to get him on the show at some point to talk about that. He couldn't find the Jesus, and there was some believer standing there who like started getting irate when Arlo was like honestly trying to see what it was they were interpreting as a Jesus and just didn't get it, and was honestly saying, "I'm sorry, I don't get it."
Right. There's so many different images of Jesus too. I mean, you could probably try and fit one of them in there, I guess.
Apparently he said that it's a part of the tree that's been sawed off.
He said there was some sawing that happened. I don't know whether that was supposed to like contribute to the Jesus-ness of the image. I don't know. I've just turned Jesus into an adverb.
But what was most amusing was how Arlo was describing how this tree has been like cordoned off by police barricades and things. It's like whatever, you know. And the fellow standing there like, see, there are the eyes, and there's nothing there under his thing. Nothing. It's just a trunk.
Well, let's have Arlo tell it.
No, Arlo. Well, no one can tell it like Arlo. It's yeah, he wants to be a guest on the show, or maybe next week or a couple weeks hence.
Cool. Well, we'll try to do that.
I look forward to that. I always like those Jesus sightings.
Okay. Oh yeah. Well, thanks for your call.
Bye.
Bye.
Whether it's a tree or an ice cream stain, it's always grist for our mill.
Hi, RC.
Hey, good morning. I just wanted to make a quick suggestion to Howard on his coming out of the closet atheist speech today.
Okay.
You know, I'm hoping that you'll encourage yourselves to do something good, productive out there in society, like getting involved and build some educational institutions or hospitals, or get involved with visiting the sick or going out to the prisons. Did you have anything like that in mind?
Well, the talk today is mostly kind of a personal thing and how people react in their personal lives.
Right.
But I understand what you're saying. You know, and it's true. Atheists as organized groups instead of as individual givers and participants don't do much.
Right.
But then again, there's hardly any atheist groups whatsoever, and the few atheist groups that there are very tiny and have very limited funds.
Right. Well, the three of y'all could at least motivate yourselves to do something good.
Well, like I said, we have our blood drive coming up at the end of the month. That's something that we do very regularly.
We're human beings, and we have this. We feel the same drives to go out and do positive things in the community that everybody else does.
Good.
I think our organization, in fact, when the Gerald tornado hit, we donated some money to the victims of the tornado.
Good. That's real good.
So yeah, I can read these statistics again, which show that non-believers, in fact, on the average, are more concerned and do more for the community than believers do.
Yeah, but he has a point. There's not an organized kind of humanitarian effort from atheists. The humanists do it a little bit.
Well, that's just a little suggestion of mine you might want to think about.
Okay,
thanks very much. Yeah, appreciate that.
I have no information on that. I really should.
That's one of the things we do.
Safe Walk. Safe Walk is coming up, and I don't have the date or time, and
but I remember
the ball on that. But that is another, the 16th of April.
Well,
of April 16. Yeah, I will bring in complete information on that in a future show. But that's another community activity that we're involved in.
That's all in part of promoting positive atheism, which our organization is all about.
Okay, let's go to Steve.
Oh, that was Steve. We just talked.
That was Steve.
This is Steve.
Oh, Steve.
Steve. Hi, Steve. What can we do for you?
That was our Steve last.
Well, I'm a Christian, and I try to be real tolerant of atheists and Buddhists and Catholics and Mormons and all the other denominations. I just wanted to tell you that I am a Christian, and a lot of them do scare me.
Yeah.
And but I also would like to hear at least some balance in your program, and sometimes saying, but not all Christians are this way, perhaps. There are maybe some exceptions.
Sure, there certainly are.
Yes.
Yes, I always, whenever I'm talking about Christians and the few who are doing the things that we object to in culture and society, I always do my best to make the point that the people whom I consider to be mainstream Christians aren't the ones out there doing that. It usually tends to be the fundamentalists or the ones out there on the far, far right fringe who simply, by virtue of being out on that fringe, are the most vocal.
Yeah, and I'd say that the far right, religious right, is part of the group that I'm most afraid of.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The other ones that frighten me are Mormons and Catholics, and they are extremes in the other direction. So, but there's a lot of, I think, Christians in the middle that don't speak out, and they don't judge.
Sure.
Yeah, we agree.
Sure. Before the show, we were talking about Barry Lynn of Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. He is a Christian. right? But he heads a major organization that opposes Pat Robertson and Falwell and those lunatics in their efforts to take over our nation.
It's the religious right that really frightens me. I think that
of course. I mean, you're part of the religious middle or left or whatever.
You're part of the religious.
Of course, that part doesn't frighten you.
No. I think that the mass middle of the religious group doesn't speak out against them. And
I mean, we recognize that it is only a segment of the Christian community that is actively trying to circumvent the Constitution of the United States, okay? And that is actively intolerant. It's only a segment of it.
And the thing in Santa Fe about prayer actually was brought by a Catholic and a Mormon.
That is correct.
Who didn't want some religious rights extreme imposing the prayer on their kids.
That is correct. But at the same time, we have concerns about the entire concept of believing in an unproven supernatural entity to begin with, okay? We recognize the right of people to go ahead and believe whatever they want. We're certainly not in favor of legislating what people can believe. But in our opinions, the reason why you can get groups like the religious right is that there is this attitude that it's somehow right and proper to believe in things that you can't prove exist. And when you think that, if you think that there is a cosmic being who dictates what is right and wrong, and then you interpret it in a way that is dangerous to everybody else, you get a problem. And it's difficult to convince a person that their interpretation of what some unproven being is supposed to have said is wrong.
My only argument would be that you can believe in an unproven being or a concept of a creator without believing in that he dictates what's right and wrong.
Okay.
Every motion.
I suppose you can.
Not a fatalist.
Okay.
Or deism.
Right.
Yeah.
Deism is a...
That's fine.
That's all. Thank you.
We don't want to give you a hard time because you're one of the friendly Christians.
We appreciate you calling, Stephen. You're welcome to call back anytime.
One comment I would add is that I just lost it.
Okay, we don't have a comment. Thanks for calling, Steve.
We lost the comment.
Bye-bye.
Comment. Okay.
Either age or spring forward.
We always like it when friendly Christians call. We don't think there's anything wrong with people believing whatever it is they want, as long as they don't cause trouble.
Ram it down your throat.
And do you ask me just to go to the next call?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Okay.
Ben, but...
Hello, Ben?
Hi.
Ben? Okay. You don't sound like a Ben. What's your name, ma'am?
I'm 13.
Sir? Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. That must be embarrassing. I didn't mean anything. Go ahead.
I was wondering, how does atheism... Sorry, my throat's kind of...
That's all right.
I was wondering how atheism influences your lifestyle.
My lifestyle?
And I'm another friendly Christian here.
Okay.
Let's let Howard take this first, and then we'll go to you.
I mean, I'm hearing about people saying that atheism makes, or Christianity or whatever, just makes them better or a worse person or whatever. I'm wondering what you mean like that.
Let me respond to that. I think that we could argue and we could pull out data and we could go back and forth on it, but I don't think there's anything inherently different in atheists and Christians in terms of them being good or bad people. We have the basic genetics, similar life experiences. There's no good argument, I think, that atheists are prone to be better or worse than Christians, or Christians are prone to be better or worse than atheists. Basically, what atheists have, we think, is a more accurate idea of reality, and I think that gives us a better chance at looking at our life problems and our life situations and making better choices, because we're not fooled with the idea that there's some kind of magical beings out there that either trying to command us to do something or tempt us into doing something bad. So in terms of our lifestyle, the basic difference would be that we don't worry about magic in our lives. We don't worry about heaven and hell and some eternal life where we're going to get tormented or like that. And that leaves us a little bit freer to accept our natural humanity and our instincts and our drives and behaviors and try to figure out what works for us and what does not work for us, and what's good and fair for other people and what's not good and fair for other people. It puts, in some ways, more of a burden on us because we don't have a set book of answers kind of to tell us how we lead our lives. But I think that responsibility is good because we should be thinking about how we interact with other people, and we should be thinking about the consequences of our actions, and we should be listening to our feelings of shame and guilt when they happen and trying to figure out what's going on, whether it's justified or not. We should be able to take a full joy in our lives in the pleasures and happiness that comes without feeling guilty about them and things of that nature. So while our lifestyles may not on the surface appear to differ too much from Christians, I think there is a fair amount of difference between our lifestyles because we're not worrying about those things that Christians worry about. We're not worrying about what our imaginary friend may put on the scorecard for our hereafter because we don't think we have a hereafter.
Yeah, I would agree with Howard on most all those points. The key word is responsibility.
Yes.
I have, since I guess, since my late teens when I, became what I would consider a confirmed atheist, is that it has made me take responsibility for my life. I can't make excuses about if I do something dumb and stupid. I just have to be a grown-up and say that's my fault. And also in terms of my own success in life and my own happiness, I'm responsible for that too. I have to work for these things and earn them. The world doesn't owe me anything. And in terms of also being good or bad, well, my motivation now for doing good things and not doing bad things is because I think good things are good things to do and bad things are bad things to do, and I want to do good things. My reason for doing good things is not because I believe if I do good things and live a good life, then after I die, I'll get a big reward. Okay, it's not about that. It's not a selfish motivation. And of course I'm certainly not claiming to be the world's greatest altruist because there are certain times when there could be good things that I do that I just choose not to, for whatever human failings that I might have. But at least whatever I do, good or bad, and I endeavor to do good in all things, I am ultimately responsible for myself. No one else is. So responsibility is how atheism has influenced me.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah. I'll say I recently separated from my Lutheran church. I'm still Christian, but I think there are a lot of churches that are believing in things that aren't really religious. There are, I was being told I could not be confirmed as a Christian until I had memorized something Martin Luther made up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I still don't fully understand the whole prayer. I don't understand that.
Yeah. Us either.
Yeah. See, that's a problem once again with this that I had when I was rejecting religion as I was moving out of my teens and into my 20s. Just all of the gobbledygook that is attached to it. And all of the dogma and the ritualism, and I said, why are these things important? And I realized that what they were doing was they just wanted you to be the obedient little sheep who fills the pews every Sunday and plops your money in the plate. It's all about recognizing this religion, this church, as the authority in your life to which you are subordinate. It's to put it in its most unkind terminology, it's a form of slavery almost.
Yeah, well, Ben,
I don't do slavery very well. So.
Yeah, Ben, let me encourage you in what you're doing. You've reached the age where you're beginning to think for yourself and make your own choices. The thoughts in your own mind are free. Nobody can tell you what to think or not think. And you're going to find that you're going to get a lot of conflicting ideas and views about what reality is and how you should behave and how you should not behave. And I think you've made a good start in trying to figure those things out for yourself. Regardless of whether or not you decide you're going to be a Lutheran or believe in God or something else, make the choice your own choice. Do your own thinking. Listen to what everyone says and put it away and process it and then make your own choice. I mean, don't let me or your pastor or anyone really tell you what to do, because it's your life, it's your mind, it's going to be your feelings, it's going to be your happiness and your sadness in your life that's going to be influenced by what you choose to believe and by what you choose not to believe. So why shouldn't it be your choice that you freely make by your own effort?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome, Kevin. Well, we converted someone.
No, we did not. Leave him alone.
It's a joke.
Kid's 13.
No,
At 13, to be able to form a concept that, hey, they're trying to get me to memorize this thing that is
I don't understand.
Just clear human being. For him to get that far at 13 is amazing.
Yeah,
and,
we're very impressed.
More power to you, Ben. Whatever it is you decide that you ultimately.
You're a very smart young guy, and you're going to get smarter as you keep going. I just can tell.
Okay. We're out of
6
calls
minutes
again. Down to 6 minutes. Do you have more?
I really don't.
I have something I wanted to read again. I did it once before, long ago, when I was just a guest on the show. And I happened to find this document on the internet again. And I just think that this would be a handy thing to fill our last 6 minutes. Now, this God...
Let's get another call.
What, are we getting another call?
Hang on.
I'm going to go.
Okay.
This God that Christians believe in is supposed to be all-loving, right? And yet,
you're an effing loser if you don't believe in it.
And yet, he is credited in the Bible, which is the holy book that's supposed to give the story of what God has done in the world. He is credited with mass murder.
Yes.
I mean, talking about 800 for that guy in Africa, that's nothing.
Yeah.
These are documented instances of murders either by God or at God's orders from the Bible. Unknown number, drowned everyone in the whole world except for Noah and his family.
Wow. Okay.
Saltified Lot's wife, that's one. Burned all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah except for good Lot, who offered his virgin daughters to a mob of men and then slept with both of them later himself. Unknown number of people. Slew Judah's firstborn son, that's one. Slew Er's brother Onan. Killed all the firstborn in Egypt, unknown number. Drowned the Pharaoh and all of his gang in the Red Sea, unknown number. Killed Nadab and Abihu for making a fire. Burned some Jews for complaining. Sent a plague against Jews for being greedy. Sent a plague on Jews who had given the chosen land a bad report. That's 11. Korah and other Jews who didn't like Moses were killed. 14,700 Jews died in a plague sent on the Jews apparently for the hell of it. Serpents sent on the Jews by God killed many, and killed an unknown number of Philistines. 50,070 Jews who looked in the Ark of the Covenant. Now, you would wonder, after like the 6th or 7th Jew who looked in the Ark and fried, you would think the others would catch on. I'm reminded of a film called Mom and Dad Save the Universe, which is like sort of a parody of the Flash Gordon movies, where their main character comes with the planet of the stupid people, and they have this weapon called I forget what it's called, but it's basically a bomb that it says on one side, pick me up, and if you pick it up, it vaporizes you. And it's a weapon that works in their planet because it's the planet of the stupid people. 50,000 Jews, 50,070 Jews who looked in the Ark of the Covenant. Nabal for scorning David was killed. Uzzah for touching the Ark when trying to keep it from falling. That's one. David and Bathsheba's child was killed. 70,000 killed in a pestilence sent because David sinned. 102 killed in a fire sent down on Uzziah's men. 42 children killed by bears who were sent by God when the children mocked the prophet Elisha.
Yes, killing children is a very godly thing.
Unknown number of lions sent to kill invaders. 185,000 Assyrians and 80,000 bad Israelites. Now that's just the number killed by God personally. That's more than 399,933 people.
Well, it's the entire population of the world.
Killed by God personally, according to the Bible.
Yeah.
Plus, killed by Jews on God's orders.
Can you get through this in 2 minutes?
Yeah. Jacob's sons killed every man in Shechem. 3,000 Jews worshiping a golden calf. 1 man gathering wood on a Sunday. Unknown number of people in Canaan. Took the city of Heshbon from the Amorites. All the people of Bashan. 24,000 Jews who followed Baal. All Midianites except for the virgin girls. Everyone in Jericho except Rahab, a hooker who betrayed her city. Achan and his family, who had nothing to do with it, for stealing. Everyone in the cities of Ai, Makkedah, Libnath, Jarmuth, Gedor, Hormah, Arad, Adalam, Bethel, Tapua, Hefer, Apheth, Lasharon, Madon, Taznach, Megiddo, Kedesh, Jokneam, Dor, Goyim, Tirzah, and all of the Amorites. 10,004 men of Bezek. The people of Jerusalem, Seshai, Ahaman, and Talmai. The people of Zephath, Gaza, Ashkelon, Ekron, and the king of Moab. The army of Sisera and the men of... Are we going to run out of time? I think I can make it. The army of Sisera and the men of Karkor. Jephthah destroyed 20 cities. Samson killed 30 men who solved his riddle, the Philistines, and tons of people when he died. 50,100 men of the tribe of Benjamin, the tribe of Jabesh Gilead, the Ammonites, the Philistines, and the Amalekites. I think I'm going to stop now. There are several hundred thousand people not mentioned yet. That is more than 2,017,956 people killed by the followers of God, according to the Bible. Not even counting 65 cities they destroyed without seeing fit to give any numbers. This is a loving God. Think about it.
Well, we don't hate you. We just think you're wrong.
Just think you're wrong.